it seems like, I may be wrong about this, it seems like the Sheva mitzvahs are a means to an end. Because the non-Jew who keeps the Sheva mitzvahs and becomes Chassidei Umas Ha'olam, he gains a chelik in the Olam Haba. It produces a good result. It is not in and of itself, because they are not kul achad. The question is, can they become connected to the point of eternity? Chiyas HaMesim. Yes, through those mitzvahs, they can gain eternity. We don't gain eternity.
So let me ask you on that, because that connects both this new conversation and the last one. I remember seeing in the Rebbe's Torah that the difference between there's a lot of question in the Rebbe's Torah about bechira, choosing specifically around mitzvahs between Jews and non-Jews, that whole subject. And I saw once where the Rebbe writes that although Chassidus posits the absence of bechira by those who are not Jewish, when it comes to Shev mitzvahs, if one does choose conventionally to participate in Shev mitzvahs, it reveals, it's miskal l'mafreya, it reveals retroactively that they always were nichlal in atzmos.
Really? You've seen that?
Yeah. Which I think is really the only logical thing to say. And what you're saying now is very tricky, because you either atzmos is everything, right? So you either are or you're not. And if you're not, you can't become that which is. Non-being can't become being.
That I did see the Rebbe say. How does that work, Tzorechiyun? How does a non-eternal being become eternal?
It's not just non-eternal. It's really non-being. It's not true being, is what you're saying.
That is such a fascinating. First of all, non-Jews don't have bechira. What kind of talk is that? How do you say such a thing? You see all these people making. How can you just ignore? They don't have bechira chofshi. That's a different thing. Our nefesh habahamis doesn't have bechira chofshis. Only the nefesh halikis has bechira chofshis because it's him.
Right.
Other than that, we have bechira, and we're responsible for our bechira. Yeah, that's human. So it's not that that a non-Jew doesn't have bechira.
Right. And even the bechira chavshis that a Jew has is only when it comes to Torah mitzvahs.
Yeah, because everything else is nefesh habahamis.
Right.
So that's number one. And number two, what are Chasidei Umas Ha'olam? Every decent non-Jew? No, Chasidei Umas Ha'olam means beyond the letter of the law. So the non-Jew who keeps the law is Tzadikei Umas Ha'olam, not Chasidei Umas Ha'olam. And that does not include Olam Haba. So these are very subtle shades of.
There's a certain, maybe this is my modern liberal sensibilities and not Chassidus in me speaking, but to me, the positing of the non-Jew outside of Atzmos is what Elliot Wolfson calls it metaphysical racism.
Yeah.
And to me, it's a certain metaphysical elitism and supremacy, which I have a hard time accepting.
I can see. Yeah, but it's true.
It just seems to be, challenging for moral and modern reasons, but also for metaphysical reasons, because you're positing, you're creating arbitrary lines. Arbitrary metaphysical, arbitrary along, sociological lines to posit certain things as belonging to existence and certain things as not. It creates sort of a very easy and flimsy door between existence and non-existence, as opposed to affirming a more challenging metaphysical truth, which is Einam Uvadi, which includes everything, which includes evil. And to me, that's the challenge that I saw Chassidus facing, as opposed to dismissing things as non-existent.
So Tov and Ra are not real distinction?
Tov, according to Chassidus and according to Chakira, God creates both, and
Yeah.
God transcends both as well.
But are they not essentially different? Mutually exclusive?
From my understanding of Chassidus, no.
Mm-hmm. That's a little bit too much emunah.
Doesn't Chassidus posit time and time again that God chooses the in any idea Be'ezim Shem Chafetz B'Masem Shel Tzedikim B'Masem Shel Rashaim.
Yeah.
There's a debate in Chakira whether God creates the categories of good and evil, or they're pre-existent. And as far as I understand, Chassidus, and in many of the Maimarim, specifically around Purim, posits that it's a choice, that God chooses good to be the desired and evil to be the undesired, but not that, right?
Not that evil exists independent of him and he doesn't like it.
But nothing, precisely, because nothing exists independent of existence.
So what makes it evil?
What makes it evil is a choice.
That comes from him,
Correct.
not from the evil.
Correct.
In other words, it's not evil turns him off.
Correct. Correct.
He doesn't want evil, so
Correct.
it turns us off, or should.
But he chooses to not want evil. He could have chosen evil.
What does that mean?
What that means is that those categories are arbitrary in some sense, and they both exist, and God chooses one to be the desired and one to be the non-desired, but not that one doesn't exist.
But he could have chosen the opposite.
According to my understanding of Chassidus, yes.
Chas v'sholom. So he could have chosen some other nation, not us?
It's a choice which retrospectively makes no other possibility an option.
Okay. What does that mean?
What that means is that it's a self-identity which is created in the act of choosing.
So it was non-essential and it became essential?
As in all of reality is a possibility, and reality chooses to materialize certain realities as essential, but that doesn't exclude the rest from being essential. It excludes it from being part of the choice of what's going to be more obviously essential.
So this is one of the major points in this whole God needs thing. When there is absolutely no reason to choose one thing over another, and yet you choose, it's not negotiable and there is no other possibility. Because that choice came from your essence,
Right.
and it couldn't be any other way.
Right.
So what does it mean that it's a choice?
But that means precisely that it's not a choice between existence and non-existence. It's a choice between existences.
And the choice is that
Equal
one thing
existences.
should exist and one shouldn't. Right?
No.
Of course. Mitzvahs are forever. Averis got to go.
Averis, I may have to go back and look up and do some learning. But
Okay, but that nakuda,
Yeah.
that if something is really bechira chofshi,
Correct.
then there was no other choice. Isn't that true?
Certainly retrospectively.
What does that mean? That will,
Because-
by the time we find out? Yeah, you're right. We don't know right away.
Right,
We'll
right,
find out later.
Right. It's the
But
choice.
by definition, if nothing about the two options
Yeah.
causes me to choose one over the other,
Right.
then where does my choice come from?
Right.
From the essence.
It comes from a self-identity, but that identity is revealed in the act of choosing, as in it's not known prior to the act of choosing.
All right.
Right.
So the choice reveals what was already
what
there.
had to have been, yeah. But
And
the
then it
choice
couldn't be
doesn't-
otherwise.
But the choice doesn't dismiss the other option, and correct me, please, as non-existent. It dismisses it as what's not desired in this iteration.
Or
but,
is not essential. It's non-essential, and therefore it can end.
Are you saying that it was essential and then it's rejected from essence?
No, the essence accepts certain things and rejects certain things essentially.
But the things that it's rejecting are non-existent and non-essential.
They exist as that which he rejects.
So they're really inferior to the thing which essence is
yes.
choosing.
Oh,
So
yeah.
then it's not a choice between equals.
No.
So then it's not free choice.
Only in him are they not equal. In themselves, they're perfectly equal.
Where is there him and where else is it? What arena is it there for choice?
For example, when the Gemara says, you think he cares whether you shecht from the front or the back? Yes, because if you shecht from the back, he'll kill you. He'll send you to Gehenna. What do you mean it doesn't matter to him? Of course it matters to him. So what is the Gemara saying? Why, you think it matters? Well, you do that with the whole Torah? You think he cares? You put on film made out of leather or plastic, you can destroy the whole Torah like this.
That's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says if you would have told us to chop wood, we'd be chopping wood. Right?
What does that mean?
Which means that all of these things are arbitrarily chosen, which is what makes them which is precisely what makes them free choice.
If that were the case, if he tells me to chop wood, I won't do it. I won't do it.
So what do you make of the Gemara? To me, precisely the point of free choice is that it's a choice between equals, and equals must both be existent.
Okay, so the question is,
right.
If they are equals, then how do you choose?
You choose by self-identifying.
Which means?
To me, it does not mean by ejecting something from existence or by revealing that it was non-existent.
Where does choosing come from if they're both the same? If they're exactly the same, there is no choice. So how do you choose when there's a human being? If you have two possibilities and they're exactly the same, cannot choose. You're paralyzed. Catatonic. If one choice doesn't appeal to me more than the other, I'm stuck. So the only time there is real choice is when they're equal. But when they're equal, how do you make a choice?
How do you make sense of that?
Huh?
How do you make sense of that?
Yeah. So it must be that it wasn't really a choice in the etzem. The etzem has a hang-up on this and a hatred for that, be'etzem, even though they're alike. So it's not that the Ra is Ra and that's why God doesn't like it. God doesn't like it, be'etzem. And that's why it's Ra. So freedom of choice, bechira chofshis, actually means no need for a choice.
Right.
You're free of a need to choose because it's already built in, or what did you call it?
Self-identifying.
Yeah.
Intrinsic.
So if it's intrinsic,
Right.
how is that a choice?
Right.
And how is the other possible? If I intrinsically don't like Chazar, what do you mean? I chose not to like it? It's called a choice because they didn't cause me to choose it. They left me free. Whereas if there's an advantage in one or the other, I'm not free.
Right.
So it's like saying voluntary, yet there's no choice. And that's the way it's going to be after Mashiach comes. There will be no choice. So what, we'll be doing mitzvahs like a robot? No, we'll be doing it voluntarily. But voluntarily doesn't mean there has to be a selection, a multiple choice. I'll do what I do freely.
Right, because it's what I want to do.
And there's nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. I mean, it does necessitate positing some sort of specific inclination within
Or options.
Right.
Yeah. So another way, simpler way of saying it, after Mashiach comes, we will still have Bechira, because we'll be able to choose between this mitzvah or that mitzvah, between good and better. But even that makes it sound like,
Right.
hey, if you can have better, why would you take good?
Right.
So the thing is causing you to choose. After Mashiach comes, there will be absolutely no influence from the thing you're choosing. It will come completely from you. And that's why we won't have to have a tzivui.
Right. And what's the difference between now and Mashiach? If that's the reality already.
It's the reality, but we're not there yet. It's like, I know I'm being stupid, but I'm still stupid. So it's getting closer. At least we realize, at least we know. But again, it's a pnimizdike process. It's not leaps of faith. Oh, you know? Okay, fine. No.
Right.
I know it. I got to absorb it. I got to go from Chachma to Bina, from Bina to Das. So the process bringing Mashiach, not Mashiach will come.
Right.
That's chitzenius. That's childish.
Right.
So going back to the question of Jew and non-Jew, yes, there is an essential difference in our relationship. We are God's child, and they are God's creation. Eved. We're more than the child. And maybe Chassidei U'Masa'olam are also God's child, but not Kul Echad. There's actually an opinion, whatever the source of it is, just interesting. Does a non-Jew have a nefesh alikis? Or just one nefesh, and that's a nefesh habahamis? There's an opinion that a non-Jew has a nefesh alikis. Vayipach ba'apov nishmas chayim is the nefesh alikis, and he's Adam Rishon.
Right.
So what is the difference between a Jew and a non-Jew? So here's how he learns Pshat and Tanya. V'hanefesh hashenis bi Yisrael yichelek alakal mimal mamish. What's unsaid is, and in the non-Jew it's a chelek alakal mimal, but not mamish.
I wonder what the difference there is.
Kul echad.
But it does seem that there's some sort of process which makes it la'asad lavi, that it becomes nitzchi, as you were saying. It becomes nichlal. It becomes mamish.
Yeah. It can be acquired.
And that's Shev Mitzvahs.
Yeah.
It seems so fascinating that non-being that non-atzmos can become atzmos. It seems as absurd as atzmos becoming non-atzmos, right?
I know. So again, it must be some, I don't know. But we're told that we are born Jewish. Nobody else. Nobody's born Christian. Nobody's born Muslim. Why? Strategically, it's a great idea. If you want to keep people from straying, tell them they're born like that. It's so good. Nobody says it. They know we're saying it. Why don't they? Because it's not true. If you don't swear allegiance, if you don't have emunah, then you're not connected to the Eibishter. There's a spark in you. Okay, fine. I'm not a spark. The me is not connected to the Eibishter. So they're saying we have to acquire a relationship with God. That's true. How do you acquire it? Sheva mitzvahs, the way a Chassidei U'Masa'olam does it, not the Tzaddikei U'Masa'olam.
What's the distinction there? What might that mean?
Yeah, what's the difference between a tzaddik and a chassid?
Mm-hmm.
So, in Yad Vashem, they have that section for the Chasidei U'Masa'olam. Why? Because he didn't kill Jews. He's a Chasidei U'Masa'olam. He's a decent human being.
Many of them were Mesir Nefesh. Many of them risked their lives.
In some cases, yeah. But that's the additional...
That's Chassid. Chassid Sarfan.
Lifnim Mishuras Adin.